And good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pattison Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scorza, and with me, as always, is my group of companions on this very important Saturday. Joey Marks once again. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Good morning, James. Good morning, Philadelphia. Welcome to a glorious Saturday morning.
It sure is, and it's a busy morning across the Delaware Valley, especially for college football and everything about our Philly sports teams. And joining us, as always, is a good friend of ours, our good pal, brother from another, Mike Fuji joins us on the show today. Good morning, Fuji.
Morning, James. Morning, Joe. Deeply appreciate you guys having me on. Congratulations on the new show, the new network. The best of luck to you guys. How you guys doing?
Good, man. We're doing really good. Before we go any further, we want to check into the comments before we go. Mitch Kofsky, the Dom, checks in, says, good morning, guys. What's going on, Mitch? This is going to be an Eagles show today. You can also check on our Facebook and YouTube page at Hardcore Sports Network and also our everywhere social media platforms. But, Joe, it was a busy week across the Delaware Valley, like I mentioned. So, simply put, where do we begin on this beautiful Saturday?
Well, we have to talk about the Eagles.
Absolutely.
So, one of the things that we have to cover is the win against the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Let's break down, and I'll start with you, Mike. Break down what you saw in the Ravens game that made you feel more confident that this Eagles team is legit. The positives, the negatives, and what you see with this team going forward.
Well, you beat the number one offense. The defense showed up. I mean, the beginning of the game, the penalties were ridiculous. Jalen Carter getting held.
Right.
Eagles just came to play. You shut down, as I said, the number one offense in football, and just, the Eagles are making their move. They made their mark. Everybody can talk about they haven't played anybody. Well, you played a Super Bowl caliber team, the team that was one game away short of getting to the Super Bowl last year in the AFC. And Vic Fangio has these guys playing lights out. And above all, Saquon Barkley, and, already in the MVP talks, Eagles came out flat, but hey, get Barkley, like the battering ram that he is, just took care of business.
Yep.
Everybody stepped up when they needed to. It's a second half team, and the Eagles just went down there. Fortunately, I happened to be down there.
Nice.
At the game. So, as Eagles Nation, we travel the best. We are the best fans, and the Eagles took care of business.
We had another friend that was down there as well, Fred Burns, and he messaged on the our Facebook group chat about how there was a big Eagles fans contingent down there. And from somebody who was, listening, watching it on television, I can tell you, I knew you guys, they were in Baltimore, but it didn't sound like it.
It didn't. It sounded like an Eagles crowd, man.
Yeah, it sounded like a strong Eagles crowd. It almost confused me. I'm like, why are the Ravens fans cheering the Eagles scoring a touchdown? I'm like, oh, wait, that's the Eagles fans. All right. Cool. Because, after the touchdown, they just started to sing and, do the chant. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's a little surprising, but not shocking.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, because Baltimore is pretty ravenous fan base. So, I would have expected a little bit better from them. But, hey, we show up and we show out. That's what we do. James, what did you take away from that Ravens game?
It's funny to mention that. I'm just still, it's, like how much you like the new toy that we got at the running back. That's basically been the story for all season long. It's like the shiny new toy that you love playing with. It's like Saquon Barkley all over again. It's just the presence of Saquon. It's been absolutely phenomenal, man. I gotta tell you what. It's I haven't been excited about a running back like this, probably going back to maybe Shady, maybe a Brian Westbrook, but I never seen a guy that all these years with Saquon Barkley was with the Giants, and then when he got drafted by the Giants, I was like saying, shoot, now we got to deal with him for the next 10 to 15 years or so, and he's going to be a thorn in the side. And then basically the Giants gave us our Christmas gift before Christmas even happened, and he's been a real. I can't express how much happy I am with the presence of Saquon Barkley, and let alone again last week, like he was the phenomenal running back he was last week, and even Vic Fangio, like Fuji said, like basically like coming into like and making this defense into like a powerhouse, and it's unbelievably, it's like this team is going to be really good for a very long time, but down the road, like Fangio is not going to go anywhere at the end of the season. So this is going to be probably like the words I like to say, maybe like another, dare I say, a new norm. But you know what? If
Don't
it's the new norm,
that.
I'm saying this in a good way. I'm saying this in a good way. I'm telling you right now that this could be something special here in South Philadelphia.
So I mean, here's my thing with the whole Fangio thing and the breakdown of the defense with that game. The Ravens came in as a top 10, top 5 offense in the league. Mm-hmm. We held them, and I get they had a garbage touchdown at the end, which they screwed me because I needed them to have Zay Flowers to have a garbage touchdown to win my parlay. But,
gotcha.
I'm like, you didn't have to throw it to that guy. You could have thrown it to Zay Flowers, and that would have been fine. But anyhow, that's my own personal problem. Mm-hmm. But this defense held that gauntlet of an offense to 12 points. But that's not even what I think is the bottom line story. The Ravens had 12 points, and you can say what you want about Tucker and everything like that, but it seemed like they frustrated Lamar. Yep. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, there are other teams that have tried and failed. But, like, there's 2 teams I feel like frustrate Lamar more so than most, and that's Kansas City and the Eagles' defense, Vic Fangio's defense, because I think they throw different looks at him, and when you're not a predictable or a defense that shows what you're doing pre-snap, Lamar doesn't know how to react in the moment, in the split-second moment. Right. And he's more willing to either bail, but if your defense stays home like the Eagles do, then it's harder for him to escape and elude. Do you think that Lamar was kind of stymied, Mike? Do you think that the defense kind of frustrated him?
I think he was, because just the way he was maneuvering in the pocket, it's like they almost were spying on him.
Yeah.
Now, let's just say this, when, like you're talking, this defense, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nakobe Dean's coming into his own this year. Like, Quinyon Mitchell is not even being thrown on his side. And, what an impact. Probably the best drafted Eagle cornerback since Eric Allen. And, this guy has a swag. Cooper DeJean, he was injured in training camp, just coming in and balling out. And Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Zach Bond, these guys are making a statement of a defense. And,
yeah, I would say, James, your wishes come true.
Yes, sir.
Your dogs are coming to hunt. Your dogs are coming to hunt.
Yes, sir. You know it, brother.
Yeah,
I'll piggyback what Fuji said on that point right there. I mean, it is just so. I mean, the thing about it too is that defense. I mean, I think Jeremiah Trotter probably called it right before the season when he was talking about his son. He says he kind of reminded me of Jim Johnson a little bit. I'm saying, like, I was gonna say, okay, let's not go crazy here, but I'm thinking, like, maybe he was right. Maybe he knew what he was talking about.
Well, I mean, if anybody knows what Jim Johnson's type of mentality and
I'll tell you what, though, I remember
it would be JT.
I'll tell you what, though, there was when he was talking to the media later in the week, and I gotta tell you what, he had when he had that hat on, it's like, holy crap, he does look like Jim Johnson a little bit. Like, he kind of reminded me of Jim Johnson. I mean, his scheme does, but I'm saying, like, oh my god, like, dude, Like he has that Jim Johnson pedigree. Like looks like him and acts like him too.
Well, think about this. We used to call Jim Johnson the mad scientist,
Absolutely.
and I think in some way Vic Fangio is that mad scientist.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know, like that is something we've been starving for, because two things are back in Philadelphia with the Eagles: a good defense and the run game.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the run game, let's talk more about Saquon Barkley.
Love it.
So later this week, Eric Dickerson was interviewed on WIP, and he was asked the question, do you want Saquon to break your record? Now, we know with 17 games in a season, we know that some of these season records are going to eventually be broken, because you're giving these players enough cracks to be able to do it. So inevitably, some of these records are going to fall that have survived for a long time.
Right.
Eric Dickerson's record has survived for 40 years. Here's my thing. Do you think Saquon Barkley should break Eric Dickerson's record, or do you think they should reel Saquon back in as the season progresses on? Do you think the record's as vitally important as, kind of keep giving Saquon some rest before the playoffs? Mike, I'll throw it to you.
Well, I agree with the rest, and as they say, records are meant to be broken. So I would leave it up to Barkley if he wants to. Just going back to the Giants game where, they had the Nick Sirianni and Barkley mic'd up, and, he wanted to know if Barkley wanted to break that record, and he said, let everybody else eat. And the class act that Saquon Barkley is, I would leave it up to him. Yeah. I mean, this could be, 40 years of an all-time record. I mean, hey, let him break it. But who knows? By that time, I mean, the Eagles, depending on where they're seated between 1 and 2 right now, I let them go for it. Yep. As I said, records are meant to be broken, and it'll be history.
Yep.
James, what do you think?
It would be nice to, he would break the record, but I think it'll be up to Saquon Barkley if he wants to, break that record. I mean, that's the thing. Even Fuji brought it up, to allude to his point, that that Giants game that he returned to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants, obviously, and Sirianni asked him if you want to break that record, and he said, nah, we'll let anybody else do it. I mean, if he breaks the record, he'll be okay, that's great and all that, but the probably top priority for him will be getting to a Super Bowl and even winning it.
Yeah, I think that with Saquon, he's the ultimate team player.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you don't need. He came here. There's been always this talk about, Philadelphia sports, and can we get the bigger athletes, and can we get the name players? Okay.
Sure.
So I look at Bryce Harper. He chose us. I look at Saquon Barkley. He chose us. That is a big difference. Sometimes when you put a jersey on a player's chest, sometimes it's something that they want and they desire and they have the passion for, and sometimes it's just a payday. With Saquon, it's not just a payday. Saquon has pride in wearing that Eagles uniform. And I think in some ways that resonates with why he's more of a team player. I think in New York, he was yeah, just give me the ball. I don't care about this. I'm a team player, but if everyone else is going to be out for themselves, then and I'm just beating my head against the wall, trying to get you guys to kind of understand we have to work together as a team, then that's what I think we need to do is move on, and that's what he decided to do. He decided to move on.
Yep.
I think breaking the record is important because I think regardless of what Saquon does this year, whether he's the Super Bowl champion, whether he's the Super Bowl MVP, whether he's the regular MVP, he breaks this, it also solidifies his legacy.
Right.
And sometimes legacy as an athlete is important. Look at LeBron James. No offense to LeBron, but he's not going to win another championship. But his legacy is going to be defined off of the records he breaks.
Right.
Dan Marino was the same thing. Dan Marino's legacy is not known for Super Bowl championships. It's known for records that he broke. So I'm not wishing Saquon to break the record and not win a Super Bowl, but why not add more to that resume, to that legacy?
Right.
I mean, we talked about it before, James, is
Mm-hmm.
Nick Foles came back. And
Right.
wouldn't you say that Nick Foles, in the position he was put in and the situation it was, he solidified his legacy by one game alone, by that
Right.
Super Bowl 52 victory. He
No doubt.
solidified his legacy just from that alone.
Yep.
So, do you think that the Eagles going into the playoffs, we're looking at the number 1 seed, but we're also eager because within that number 1 seed, there are things that need to happen with the Lions. Unfortunately, the Packers cannot get it done on Thursday to give us a favor. But the Lions still have tough games ahead. They have to host the Bills. They have to go to Chicago. They have to play the Niners. And then they have to play the Vikings that are starving to take that division away from the Lions. I'm a strong proponent that the Lions are kind of getting crippled by self-inflicting wounds. Mike, do you think that do we just understand that we can't get? Do we try to fight to get the 1 seed, or do we kind of just be okay with being the number 2 seed?
I think you got to fight for the number 1 seed. I mean, the home field advantage, especially here. I mean, I think Ford Field would be very loud being indoors, but they say Seattle's the 12th man. We always were the 12th man, no matter if it was the vet,
Exactly.
the lake. And my thing is, I mean, the Eagles are in better position to get that number 1 seed. I can't see the Lions winning the next 4 with all these tough games. Buffalo next week, Minnesota the last game going to. Chicago. The last couple of games, Chicago had teams on the ropes, and they just couldn't deliver the blow. And I don't care division. I don't care what division. I don't care how good the team is, how bad the other team is. It's always a dogfight. There's always that pride in the division.
Right.
Well, speaking of pride and going to Detroit and whatnot, if you want to get your hands on some great Eagles tickets, there's a great sponsorship that we have, part of ticketnetwork.com. Do you want to tell them more about it, James?
Yeah, sure, Joe. Today's show is sponsored by our friends, like Joey mentioned, our friends over at TicketNetwork.com. TicketNetwork.com is a proud sponsor to the Philadelphia Eagles, and now you can score big and score a touchdown on the road to victory with the best seats in the house with our friends over at Ticket Network. Whether it's the best seats in the house or budget-friendly in between, Ticket Network has got you covered. But remember to scan that QR code like on the bottom of the screen here, right next to Saquon Barkley, and secure your spots today with the best seats in the house with our friends over at Ticket Network. Visit them online at ticketnetwork.com.
Awesome. So, I got to ask this because this is a guy who I have been kind of hand-ringing the doorbell here for a long time, and that's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has been left out of the MVP, in my mind, left out of the MVP conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's unjustly so, because here's the thing. This guy has done – people use game manager quarterback as a negative connotation, but this guy has to perform when he needs to perform. You can't use you can't use what talent he has on that team, his teammates, his coaches, as an indictment against his ability to, Josh Allen gets higher ranking because he's throwing the worst receivers. If that were the case,
that,
Donovan
that yeah,
McNabb
that's
should have been a
ridiculous.
5-time MVP. He was throwing the James Thrash, and Todd Pinkston. So I mean, Mike, what is your take on the Jalen Hurts MVP conversation or lack thereof?
Oh, I think it is. I don't know if I would put him in the MVP conversation because to me, I mean, you brought in Barkley. You know, Hurts is still getting his yardage. You know, still taking the team on his back. You know, making plays when he needs to. I just think we brought Saquon Barkley in, take the pressure off Hurts, and maybe it's just Saquon Barkley's just overshadowing Jalen Hurts as the field general, and just my opinion.
Well, see, I can understand. You brought up a really good point. Oh, he's probably overshadowing Jalen, and because no one's overshadowing Josh Allen in the Bills organization.
Right.
So, like, I get that. No one's like a world beater on the Bills other than Josh Allen. He's basically carrying that team on his back. But that all that being said, you look at the stats between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts this year, and they're pretty much in lockstep. That's the only part of that where I feel like Jalen is like he may not win the MVP. Like in 2022, I was like it's Jalen Hurts MVP all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't say that quite so quickly because you're right. If someone put Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts side by side and said you're the deciding vote, you choose who gets the MVP. I like Jalen, but Saquon's the reason why this team's running the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the way that, and I hate to use another baseball reference, it's kind of like how the Phillies try to protect Bryce Harper.
Right.
You have a guy that is either batting ahead of him or batting behind him. You protect what pitches Bryce Harper can get. Bryce might get better pitches to hit if the person in front of him and the person behind him is just as good and just as talented or just as dangerous. So think about it this way. This Eagles offense is just as dangerous because Saquon's the threat, but Jalen's the threat. So Saquon almost protects Jalen in some ways. So, yeah, I could kind of get that overshadowing. I could also get the idea that people think that Saquon is Jalen's safety net. But, I mean, even Eric Dickerson said something on his interview this week is that every good quarterback has a good running back to lean on. Right. And like, you can't necessarily say, oh, well, they're a good quarterback, but they never had a good running back.
Right.
Well, just to bring this up, I mean, look at John Elway.
Yep.
John Elway was at 3 Super Bowls before winning 2 in a row. I mean, he didn't have a running game until he had Terrell Davis.
Right.
Right.
And I go back to, like, I know we don't want to bring it up, but the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s with Emmitt Smith.
Right.
I mean, those kind of situations kind of help. But then when you look at some of the opposite, you have in Detroit where you had Barry Sanders, this, like, one-in-a-lifetime kind of running back, but no quarterback. Like, you do need to have a talented quarterback with a talented running back.
Well, that's the thing too, and that's the thing too. Not just like with running backs, but probably with receivers too. I mean, you think about Detroit all these years with Calvin Johnson. Like we had Matthew Stafford. Like he never had a great quarterback like he does now. But I know what you're saying though, Joe.
Well, I mean, look, there has to be a threat on the outside too, and I go back to the Eagles with Donovan McNabb. We had guys like Westbrook and Shady and Buckner, like Buckholter and all those guys.
Right.
We had a strong run game with Donovan, but he didn't have anybody that could be a threat on the outside until Deshaun came around.
Sure.
Like that's the difference, is that you also have to be able to show that you have the ability to throw it to someone successful. This is why I've always said Tom Brady is different. And because Tom Brady, outside of Randy Moss, Tom Brady really, and Mike Evans, Tom Brady really didn't have that kind of receiver for a while.
No, you're right.
He had Edelman and Hogan.
Amendola.
He had these
Deion Branch.
Right.
Deion Branch, yeah, right.
He won the MVP that 1 year.
Yeah, that he did.
And I mean, like, here's the thing, though. But Brady, if you would have moved Deion Branch, and I've said this to a friend of mine before, this was the debate that I had. If you move Deion Branch or Chris Hogan or Edelman or whatever to another team, they flounder. Like, it was Brady who made them relevant. And so that's why I'm thinking, okay, Brady was just different. But, like, this is one of the reasons why this Eagles offense is so effective. But I'll go to you, James, about this. Do you think Jalen Hurts should be on the MVP list?
I think he should. I really think he should. I mean, it's just the thing about what Jalen Hurts is, I think everybody that probably don't like what Jalen Hurts, like, he's not, like, he don't, like, I guess people think that he's too boring. I don't know if that's a little cheesy to say, because, like, he's not like an exciting quarterback that loves the. I mean, he loves the game, but he has his like game face on, and I mean, I guess he's not
a Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly. He's not spinning nickels on his forehead.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, that's kind of the other part of it, is that he's like, oh, he's only throwing it
to AJ, and like he's a good quarterback, but like it's the Chris Sims effect. Like he's not like putting like I say, he's not like on Sports Center top 10 plays. He's not just like he's flashy. Don't get me wrong, but he's not like eye popping to like media players. That's probably why they don't put Jalen Hurts in that competition, because everything is basically in this day and age is this phone right here. That's all it is. If you can see it.
Contest.
A popularity contest, exactly.
Clickbait.
Exactly.
So going from one award race to the next, let's move to another person on the Eagles that is being snubbed for the yearly award, and that's Nick Sirianni. Sirianni is 24th in Coach of the Year ranking.
Really?
24th. So I gotta ask.
That's a violation.
Do you? I'll start with you, James.
Sure.
Do you think that that's fair?
No, I don't think that's fair. I mean, I the thing I don't understand with people that try to understand what Nick Sirianni is. I mean, look, sure, he says too much. Sometimes he talks too much, and sometimes he like brings his family into the occasional like victories and all that. But I'll tell you this: if he wins games, like that should tell you all you need to know. Like this is a real good story. I mean, sure, early on we wanted him fired because he was making stupid making stupid plays and all that, but like he turned the team around. I mean, like. They won 8 straight because of like. I mean, I want to say the shaking of the head probably had a thing or two about it, but I mean,
he needed more oxygen to the brain. That's what the
exactly. It wasn't, and sure. I mean, he's goofy, but you know what? Like sure. I mean, you got to go out there and have fun. I mean, like him 24th, like. Behind, like I don't even know who's like I mean, I can imagine it's going to be Andy Reid and all the others that are going to be ahead of him, but 24th behind all these other coaches for Coach of the Year. That's BS. I'm sorry, that's ludicrous.
That is pretty low. Well,
it is, yeah, isn't it?
Mike, what do you think? Is that fair, or would you put him? How high would you put Nick Sirianni in the Coach of the Year ranking?
I mean, hey, it's all about wins at the end of the day. And my thing is, I'd say you got to put him in the top 5 because you look at the debacle last year.
Right.
He was basically on, we all wanted to run him out of here after 2-2. But the thing I think that's kind of behind, how he brought in Fangio. He brought in Kellen Moore. So it's like, with the addition of Barkley, but is it Fangio and Kellen Moore? Both coordinators making, behind the curtain, making Sirianni look better. But like I said, after last year, I put him in the top 5 for Coach of the Year because look at the turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
His players back him; they love him. He says the right things, in the post, the post game talks, giving out game balls, and they back. I guess they'll run through a brick wall for him right now, as we speak.
Here's the thing: is I've played sports, and when you're in the locker room, it's a matter of believing in the coach because the coach is guiding you. As much as he's leading you, he's guiding you. Right. And I think for Nick Sirianni, he's proven that he's good to be that leader. He's good to give guidance. Mm-hmm. He's good to be that rah-rah guy. But here's the thing that I like about Sirianni the most. People who sit there and say his actions or his antics and whatnot, look, this guy is doing stuff that hasn't ever been done as a Philadelphia Eagles head coach. And that's
historic.
No small feat. That's no small feat. And the fact that this guy's got an over 80% winning percentage as an Eagles head coach, as a head coach in the NFL. Let's take it out of just Philadelphia. In the NFL, that's unheard of for a first-time coach.
Very good point.
That's my perspective, is that we could sit there and think, okay, he's yelling at the fans or he's shaving his head or, whatever. But if it galvanizes that locker room, that should puts wins in that win column, that should all be all that matters. Because you get into that playoffs, that tournament as it's been referenced before, you always have a chance at the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. I mean, we at Philadelphia, we lived with Andy Reid in the 4 or 5 years of constantly going back to the playoffs. We got to the Super Bowl once, and, it didn't work out for us. Okay. But because of all the times he got us to the playoffs, he always gave us a chance.
Right.
And Sirianni's always going to give us a chance. Let's face it, he's going to go back to the playoffs again.
Yep.
4 years, 4 playoff appearances. That's not an accident. You don't.
No, it's not.
Into the playoffs.
And to allude to your point, Joe, you're right on point on everything about this. The thing with Sirianni that makes me amazed to think that, even Fuji brought it up, he was we wanted him out here after 2-2, but then he changes the season around and he won 8 straight games. I mean, his team won 8 straight games. I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit of credit. I mean, sure, if it's Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, on the offensive defensive side, but you got to give him some credit. I mean, it's not gonna. It's just
look at the teams that are around the league now, that are struggling to put wins together. The Niners, the Cowboys, the Bengals. These were all teams that people in the beginning of the year said they would all be playoff bound. They're all going to be sitting at home in a couple weeks. That is the difference. Is that,
it's going to stare them in the face, basically.
Right. And the fact that we can sit there and be highly critical of Nick Sirianni when it's okay, this dude's just giving you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. You could say, oh, well, we need them to finish the deal. Okay, I don't disagree with that. But he's not old. He's, still very motivated, highly motivated. He's been able to change his regime not once, not twice, but 3 times. This guy in 3 out of the 4 years he's been here has had to deal with managing different coordinators. And, I don't know if anybody out there has been in a management position, but that's not an easy deal. Having a rotation of people, because you have to get along with them. There's an attitude.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but the boss man that just checks in, our old boss over at EOP, Big Al Safiri, checks in, says, "Morning, fellas. How you been, Al? Long time no see. Hope all is well with you and the family. Thanks for chiming in.
How you doing?
Happy holidays, Al. And,
happy holidays from my family to yours as well.
So, speaking of, awards and kind of the idea of keepsakes, and putting stuff on your mantle, there's a great place where you can get some gifts for the holiday season at sportsmemorabilia.com. James, why don't you tell more about sportsmemorabilia.com?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Today's show is sponsored also by our friends over at sportsmemorabilia.com. Sportsmemorabilia.com is authentic, certified, and genuine because right now you can get your fix on with the most iconic memorabilia from all your iconic players from your Philly sports teams, unforgettable moments, and so much more right now at sportsmemorabilia.com. But don't forget to scan that QR code, like always, at the bottom of your screen and add to your collection, like Joey said, to this holiday season, or visit them online at sportsmemorabilia.com. That is at sportsmemorabilia.com.
So the next thing I have to ask is we have to start to look forward with the Eagles. We have to look at this week, but even further with the remaining schedule. We're coming down to the stretch run. I got to ask, because this has been something widely asked on Sports Talk Radio this whole week. Mike, do you think the Eagles can possibly win out?
There's definitely a possibility, but it's, you got Pittsburgh coming. Well, I don't want to forget Carolina. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've I don't take nothing away from them. 3-9. They've been playing some great football. They took Kansas City to the brink 2 weeks ago, or they took Tampa Bay down to the wire last week. Bryce Young's playing better. You can't take your foot off the gas pedal. I mean, you can't play down to the opposition tomorrow or take Carolina for granted or anything. But it's definitely a possibility they could win the next 5. But I think if you're going to lose a game, I think you lose to Pittsburgh because it'll affect the conference with Detroit, trying to get that number 1 seed. I'd say they win at least 4 out of 5.
Okay. Who do you think they lose to?
I mean, to me, if you're going to lose, just lose to Pittsburgh because, like I said, it's not a conference game. Just to stay on Detroit's heels. But I definitely think they can win 5. But
yeah, but you know what? You're not completely wrong because I mean, all the last couple meetings between the Eagles and the Steelers, doesn't matter where each is in the standings and where they are franchise-wise, like in their evolution. The Steelers always come in and just give us a fight, and it's always a dog fight. Like, they're not NFC and they're definitely not NFC East, but man, they come in and like punch us in the mouth, and it's like, okay, that's where I think having Saquon's going to help. But because with the defense that the Steelers have, they're going to punch us in the mouth. Like, that's going to happen.
Big time.
But can we respond? That's the question. It's the counter punch. James, what do you think? Do you think the Eagles will win out?
I really think I do. I really think they can win out. I mean, sure, Carolina gives you a little bit of a little bit of a tease once in a while, like to see where they are. I mean, but Bryce Young don't scare me. I mean, maybe Jadeveon Clowney said some stuff during the week. It's like I think it's all smoke and mirrors, to gonna admit. But I mean, the Steelers, to me, I think that like their game last week when Russell Wilson scored, like had more than 400 yards against Cincinnati. That was their Super Bowl. I think the Eagles could beat them. We already beat Washington already, so I could see that they can probably win that again. The Cowboys, I mean, Prescott's still not there. Obviously, that's another cakewalk, and they'll probably lose that last game of the season because they'll probably get ready for the postseason if they get that number 2 seed. If they don't get that number 1 seed, they'll probably be resting guys in Week 18, kind of like semi-similar to like an old preseason game. I guess that's going to be. So I'm thinking that's going to be the biggest key for me. I mean, if they win like the next 4 out of the next 5, I think I'm okay with that.
So for me, I feel like obviously they have a chance of winning the next 4 out of the 5.
Sure.
The two games that I worry about the most is the Commanders and the Steelers,
Mm-hmm.
because we already beat the Commanders. The Commanders are still going to be itching for that wild card spot.
Right.
So they're going to have something to fight for. They're not going to be a team that's going to lay down. Pittsburgh is going to be having both those teams have something to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
They're both kind of, trying to get position in their respective conferences to still make the playoffs. Pittsburgh, I think, is trying to stay pace with Baltimore to win that division. And with the Commanders, they're trying to stay in the wild card hunt. And
Mm-hmm.
with the NFC North, you have a conceivable notion that 3 teams from the NFC North can make it.
Mm-hmm.
So for Washington, in order for them to get in, they have to stay pace, because if the NFC West wakes up, because that's just a dogfight, like those
Definitely.
guys just knocking the heads off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But when the dust settles from that, if the Commanders take their foot off the gas, they might be left at home for the playoffs. So my feeling is the 2 games that I feel like it's possible for them to win out. However, I do feel, because I had them at 12 wins, so they're going to exceed that. But I feel like the two games that I worry most about are the 2 teams that have a lot more to fight for. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're not going to lay down, and they're not going to give in. So, we all know how hard it is for NFC East teams to get swept in a series in the season. So, as our friend Frank Finnegan would say, don't underestimate the divisional games. And you brought that up earlier, Mike. Don't underestimate the division games. It doesn't matter about the record.
Yeah.
So
Division games are always division games, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said with Washington. I mean, we're going down to their house, and they want some retribution, or it's their best start. Jalen Daniels is having a hell of a year, and
Right.
whether they lost a couple close games, and it's just they're hungry. I'm sure that organization wants to get back to the glory days before Daniel Snyder bought them, and they could even they want to win this division, or they want to get in that wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And like, that's the thing is, someone like Dan Quinn, whose first year is there, Jaden Daniels, and all those guys that are there, like, they're in kind of this transition, but it's house money for them. And they're like, well, if it's house money, we still should be like pushing all the chips to the center of the table regardless, because we got nothing else to lose.
I mean,
go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, you got some guys down there that, won Super Bowls. You got, Bobby Wagner, of course, Zach Ertz here.
Yep.
Just veteran leadership that, I'm sure they want to go out on top before they hang it up. And this might be their last shot.
It's odd for me to see Zach Ertz in a Commanders uniform. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's like Dawkins with the Broncos jersey back in the day.
I can't. Like, can we just do what we did with Brian Dawkins? Can we just forget that he even
played with Denver?
Can we forget that happens?
Right now, the Eagles could use Zach Ertz. I mean,
they could.
Connor being necked up all the time, and
I
don't care how old he is. As long as the guy's still healthy, he can play.
Oh yeah.
I think him and I'm sorry for interrupting, Joe.
No,
with Zach Ertz, I think will probably give you a better chance. I mean, no offense to Goddard, but Goddard's always hurt though.
I mean, so transitioning from one Zach to the other, I have a real important question that's been on the tip of every Eagles fan's tongue. Is Howie Roseman going to re-sign Zach Bond? Mike, do you think that he doesn't pay linebackers, but do you think he should he already broke one trend. He never paid running backs. He broke that trend with Saquon Barkley. Do you think he should break another trend and pay Zach Bond?
I'm going to say one name, T.J. Edwards. I think, as you said, great point about, the Eagles never paid running backs, but you got to pay Zach Bond. I mean, you let T.J. Edwards basically go to Chicago for nothing.
Right.
The guy's having an outstanding year, playing alongside the Kobe Dean. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah.
But another guy, not to throw this guy into the mix, that I think's flying under the radar on the offensive line, you got to pay Mekhi Becton.
Oh, yeah.
Another guy.
Good point.
Well, you definitely have to pay Zach Bond, no doubt.
No question.
Mistakes again.
I mean,
break that trend and pay the linebacker.
Yes, and I mean, like this is the thing. The Mekhi Becton re-sign seems more logical because Howie always likes paying the offensive and defensive linemen. Like that seems more in Howie's wheelhouse. So I think Becton's got a home for a while here. He's proven this has been a reclamation project, but a good one, because this guy, I've liked him since he's come out of college. And when he floundered with the Jets, I was like, well, that's a disappointment. But he comes here to Jeff Statland University. This is proof that it's about coaching. It's about guidance. You put the right coach with the right player, and it fits like a perfectly shaped puzzle piece. It's perfect.
Exactly.
So, here's the thing. With Mekhi Becton and Zach Bond, I'm going to get your opinion real quick, James. With both of them, do you think Howie should re-sign both?
Yeah, no question, Joe. I agree 100% with Fuji said about Mekhi Becton. You got to sign him, but definitely you got to definitely sign. I mean, you definitely got to sign Zach Bond. I mean, he did break that trend last year signing Saquon, so I think it will break this other trend. But Bond's been playing outstanding football. I mean, he's been playing at an all-time great level. I mean, Nakobe Dean has become a better player because of Zach Bond, and I think that's probably a good reason why too. Yep. But yeah, I mean, I'm just very, very intrigued about how much Zach Bond has become a real big factor. I mean, seeing that number 53 kind of reminded me of another a guy who wore that number 53. Right?
So
exactly.
I mean, here's the other part of this. So
that's magic, man.
You brought up how Nakobe Dean is playing better because of Zach Bond, and you're absolutely right.
Yep.
I also feel like Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, these guys are awesome. Milton Williams, all these guys are complementary to Zach Bond. And here's the thing. Zach gets some of the stats, no doubt. He gets the tackles, he gets his numbers. But then because now the offense has to pay attention to him, they're not paying attention to someone else. Like a Nakobe Dean, like a Nolan Smith, like a Jalen Carter. That when you take your eye off of one ball, you then lose your attention towards someone else. And that's where this Eagles defense thrives the most, is attacking you from different angles. So when you have someone like a Zach Bond that puts up those numbers, that can tackle in the open field, that can rush the quarterback, that can shoot the A gap and the B gap, this is the difference, is that opens up so much of the other, parts of the field with the other defenders. So it makes him valuable to resign, not just for the player, but for the team, for that whole defense. And sometimes the captain of the defense isn't the guy wearing the C. It's the guy that performs individually and leads by example. Trot did it. Doc did it. We all saw it. We all understood it. We all embraced it. I think this team has embraced a lot of different players on this team, on this defense. And as a little tidbit of knowledge here, this Eagles defense is one of the youngest in the NFL.
That's
with Darius Slay and Bradbury. And by the way, I didn't even know, I brought it up on this show a couple weeks ago, I didn't even know Bradbury was still on this team.
Right.
He is,
Right.
but we don't need to have him on the field.
So
Yeah,
now his old back room.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
now his old office.
the basement. He's in the
Yeah.
basement.
Put him in the bathroom.
Yep. So,
Big Al checks it again. It says, well, would Zach Bond flourish in another system? That's a very good question.
Great question.
well, I don't think he would, only because he stymied in New Orleans. You wouldn't know if he went to another system that had a high level like a system like a Vic Fangio, because there are Vic Fangio disciples out there as defensive coordinators. So maybe if he went somewhere like that, but I think it's not just the idea of just Zach Bond. It's you have Zach Bond with N'Kobe Dean. It's like I said, can he survive on his own? Sure. You could put him on the Chargers defense and he would thrive. But you put him on the Carolina Panthers defense or the New York Giants defense, I'm not so sure, because there's no other big threat. They only can the offense can key in on him. The minute that the opposing offense keys in on him, N'Kobe Dean hits him. No, N'Kobe Dean hits a quarterback, or Nolan Smith or Jalen Carter breaks up the middle. There's other threats. I think he eats as well as he does because there are other threats on this defense. But if you want to get a Zach Bond jersey and you want to root Zach on to getting an extension, or a Jalen Hurts jersey, or a Saquon Barkley jersey before he breaks that Eric Dickerson record, go to our great sponsor, great partner, Rally House, rallyhouse.com. Why don't you tell them more about it, James?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Today's show is also sponsored by our friends over at Rally House, like Joey mentioned. Rally House is a proud sponsor to the Philadelphia Eagles and the number one place to go for all things Eagles merchandise, from jerseys to hats and also everything in between. Don't worry, Rally House got you covered just in time for game day. And this is something that you will mostly enjoy. Now Eagles fans can support their Eagles and at the Eagles pride at the link this season, and also to be the envy of friends and viewers alike. And like always, you can scan that QR code at the bottom of your screen and score big right now at rallyhouse.com. That is at rallyhouse.com.
You go to scan that QR code, you will go right to the Philadelphia Eagles jerseys and Philadelphia Eagles apparel. You can grab your stuff right now, fill that stocking stuffer, get that gift for that person that is your diehard Eagles fan. Get yourself ready for the playoffs with rallyhouse.com.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if someone's going to give me a good old Weapon X jersey from their old days. I mean, I never had a Brian Dawkins jersey, but just a little stocking stuffer for anybody. So someone give me a Brian Dawkins jersey or a Weapon X. I would appreciate it from Rally House. But no, like I said, check them out today at rallyhouse.com for more info.
So let's go ahead, and speaking of house, we're going to be protecting this house tomorrow against the Carolina Panthers, coming in, pounding their drums, and what we're going to do is pound them into the ground. Basically, let's get a breakdown and preview of what you guys think about this game tomorrow. Mike, I'll start with you.
It's like I said, I mean, Carolina's playing a lot better. Bryce Young, either, I don't want to say resurrecting his career, but he's either going to stay in Carolina or maybe just showcasing his talent to go elsewhere. I mean, I think you got to shut down Chuba Hubbard. I mean, Adam Thielen's coming off an injury, playing pretty solid. Xavier Legette, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but, you just got to come out and just keep playing your game like you did the last 8 weeks and drop the hammer.
Right.
So, what's your prediction as far as score? What do you think the score is going to be?
I'm going to go Birds 34-19.
Nice.
Okay, James, you can give me a breakdown of what you think is going to happen tomorrow at the link with the Carolina Panthers coming into town.
Well, I mean, this is going to be a game that the defense is going to feast away. Obviously, I'm not too crazy about Bryce Young. He's not like the player that we all expect him to be. Obviously, I think the Panthers, it's kind of like the same situation that the Bears have with Caleb Williams, same kind of scenario, like with the first overall pick last year and this year as well. But for me, this is going to be the game that I'm going to see like probably a lot of sacks on the quarterback tomorrow. I think the Eagles are going to sack Bryce Young a lot. He's like sometimes when he gets pressure, he kind of sees ghosts a little bit. So for me, I got to say that the Eagles got to keep a close eye on Adam Thielen. He's a thorn in the side sometimes, and you got to keep a close eye on him, especially Hubbard as well, and even like Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, like he was talking about that, like talking about the fans this week and all that, and I got to be honest with you, I don't see Clowney getting any sacks or not like anything particular with that. He's like 100 years old, so I'm not too crazy about him. So, but you want to ask my prediction if I could? Okay. So for my prediction, I say the Eagles are going to win big tomorrow. I think it's going to be a 34-7 Eagles win. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a big blowout tomorrow. I think Hurts is going to get 4 touchdowns and Devontae's going to have himself a day too.
Nice.
Whoa. Okay.
Eating tomorrow.
A government mule, my friend.
Wow. I mean, I know I said pound them into the ground, but I mean.
Hey, you said it. I mean, and I just lead it into it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, wow. Okay. Well.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy about Carolina. I mean, yeah, Carolina is good, but they had to come back down to earth. I mean, come on, let's not get crazy.
Here's my take: is that first off, Clowney is going to come in here
and act like a wise guy. Wise ass, I mean.
He's already a hated person at this stadium.
Correct.
He's already a hated person in this city. And dude isn't even – he's never played for the Cowboys. He's never played for the Giants. And you're a hated person in Philadelphia.
You know what's funny?
Person to be that.
You know what's funny, Joe, is that we still hate him because we hear Carson Wentz in that playoff game, and Carson Wentz ain't even here anymore.
Right.
It's like, okay, dude, why am I being hated for a guy you guys dropped like a bad habit, and I dropped like a bad habit on your field? Like, I did y'all a favor.
Yeah, you should appreciate me.
Right.
Right.
But so, here's my feeling is that I kind of in lockstep with Fuji a little bit in the sense that, Bryce Young is still a really good, talented quarterback. Now,
that's true.
Thielen is a talented receiver. I'm still unsure about Hubbard, like where that fits. He's not the elite back, but he's not like a sub-par back. But here's where I'm going to kind of go. I kind of lean in the sense that the Eagles are going to score. I mean, that Carolina defense is last in the league for a reason. So they're going to eat. Mm-hmm. But it's a matter of, I think it's going to be a big game for Saquon Barkley.
Ooh,
I think Saquon had a 3-touchdown game earlier in the season. I think he goes for 4 touchdowns tomorrow.
Ooh,
and I think he goes for 200 spot.
I like it.
200 total yards. Mm-hmm. I think this guy just completely uses the cheat code, as they're calling him now, to get around all those Carolina defenders. Mm-hmm. I think that Carolina is going to be outmatched, not offensively, but defensively. I think Bryce Young is not going to score 17 or 2 touchdowns or any of that because, there's an understanding with Vic Fangio. He puts it on the board. The defense has to hold that opposing offense to 16 or fewer. So my prediction is Eagles 35, Panthers 14. I think that this is a rout, but I think it doesn't become a rout in the beginning. Mm-hmm. In parting, I want to, before we wrap up, I want to kind of ask this question because this has been something that's been bothering me. So, we talk about what they're going to do to Carolina, but
Michkowski got the Eagles winning at 24-10. Sorry, Joe.
Okay. So, and keep having those predictions come in, folks.
Yeah, come in when it's hot, man. While it's hot, man.
So, here's my thing. When we talk about, the Eagles and not getting out to a fast start in the first quarter,
Right.
does that matter? I mean, here's my logic, and then I'll open it up to you guys. You don't win games in the first quarter. You win it in the fourth quarter. And I know people might disagree with me with that, but my feeling is you could get up on a team 21-0 in the first half, and they still have a chance of coming back and beating you.
Right.
You still have to have sustained offense or sustained play through that fourth quarter. Because if you fall asleep, you're going to fall behind and maybe lose. So my feeling is if you have a slow start in the first quarter, it's
normal
the adage, but it's the true adage. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Exactly.
So, Mike, I'll ask you, is this overblown by the media right now with the slow starts the Eagles have been having?
I would say, yeah, because, they're a second half team. You came out flat. The play calling in the beginning of last week was flat. This team really didn't get going until right before the half, and the second quarter they turned up the Jets. They pound. If you really look at it in the second half, they just pounded Barkley, getting those 2 touchdowns.
James, do you think it's overblown?
No, I don't think it's overblown. Actually, yeah, I do. I think it is because, here's the thing. Like you said, Joe, how you start is how you finish and all that. But last week they had so many penalties in that first half. It was kind of hard to fathom of how many mistakes they were making. But then that fourth quarter came around and they just put Baltimore away. That's going to be the big key. That's going to be the big key I take out of it too. If the Eagles are going to win tomorrow, it's most definitely is that if you start off fast, you gotta not start out fast, but if you start out with momentum, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's you basically perfectly said it best, Joe.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up for this week's show. Join us next week. We're gonna have a real special guest that I'm really looking forward to. John McGice. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, John. From the Philadelphia Fire Beep Ball team in Beep Ball, the National Beep Ball Association. It's basically baseball for blind and visually impaired people. And the Philadelphia Fire are World Series champions in that league. They brought the title home for the first time an East Coast team has won the championship in the 48 years that the league has been around. So John won the league, the World Series MVP, and he's going to be joining us next week to discuss about beep ball, to discuss Philly sports, and discuss maybe even a little. Maybe we might get into some hot stove talk and see what he thinks about what the Phillies might be doing for next season. But before we go, I want to shoot it over to Mike. Mike, where can people find you?
They can find me at the 50 with Fuji and Fleet. We got a show coming on this Wednesday with Miss Gene, the great Gene Hart, former Flyers announcer, steward Lauren Hart will be joining us from 7 to 8. So see us on YouTube and Facebook.
Nice. Very cool.
And I wanted to thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Man, you got it.
Want to wish you on good luck with the new show, Mitch. Congratulations on the new network. Thank you again for you guys like to come back. Chop it up, maybe playoff time or whenever you guys just give me a holler.
Yeah,
you got it, buddy. Thanks for coming on, brother. We do appreciate you, man.
Anytime.
It's a pleasure to have you on here. It's a pleasure to talk. So I want to give another thank you to James Scorza.
You got it, dude.
For doing all the intricacies and the turning the wheels and the man behind the curtain, as you said earlier.
Yep.
So I also want to thank everybody who joined us on the on the YouTube channel. Hit that like and subscribe. Go to Hardcore Sports Network and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Go to Facebook, share, do comment, get involved in the conversation. We're all for that. I'm
sorry, Joe.
Go to Stream Punk Entertainment as well. Check out their Facebook page and follow them. Give them a like and a share, and also go to their YouTube channel because they have great content. They just got done interviewing people from the Patriots organization.
Nice.
And the Patriots commentator, I believe it's the
Bob
color
Succi.
commentator. Yeah. So, go check that out. It's always great content. They're a great follow. And hit that like and subscribe. Go ahead, James. What were you going to say?
Yeah, and before we go, check out today at 12:30 for Hockey Night on Broad Flyers pregame show, day edition, as the Flyers take on the Boston Bruins at 1 o'clock. I'll be doing the pregame show. And remember to stay tuned after the game for the third line drawn with the gobbler, Pat Bernard, after when the Flyers take on the Bruins. And hopefully get 2 points out of it. But, Joe, like always, let's wrap it up before everything starts to get loose around here.
Yeah, seriously. So, James literally goes from breakfast with the boys to brunch with the boy. So
yeah, I'm not a morning person, but I do it. I love this job more than anything. So, again, thanks a lot for joining us today, Fuji. We really do appreciate it.
For Mike Fuji, for James Scourge, I'm Joe Marks. We are the Pattison Ave Sports Show. And we are out. Have a good weekend, Philly. Go Birds.
Go Dogs. Beat Texas.